bad day. Thank you. Every day is...
I'm not saying it's going to be a bad day. I'm just saying I enjoy Fridays more than Mondays inherently. Rainy days and Mondays
You
always
know
get
what?
me down.
There's actually a meme that says if you live your life looking forward to Friday, then you need to get another life or get another job. That's sad. Oh my gosh, there's actually another meme that said, stop doing that. Stop living for Friday. Stop living for tomorrow. Stop living for, when it gets warm. Make every day awesome.
Well, Janelle, it was on the
Awesome.
internet, so it must be true.
That's what I do.
It was on
You
the
know
internet.
why? Because I don't like wintertime. No, not because.
Oh,
but
no. I'm sorry. All seasons are equally special.
No, that's what I was going to say. And years ago, I had that attitude. And I was like, when it's warm, we'll do. And so I learned with the kids to fall in love with winter. So we look for activities that
You're trying to say you're better than me?
No, I'm saying you need to learn from me. Oh my gosh.
All right, who's checking in?
Eva, Sheila, what's up? Mike, Roseanne, my girl. Pamela says, every day rocks. I love it. Live it. That's right.
Sheila loves rainy days. Good.
Mike says,
Excellent.
Rainy days are awesome. Mike says, did you get your hair done? It looks nice. Not you, Brian. Yes, I did yesterday. I'm using a new product for curly hair, and I actually like it. And it's cheaper than what I was using. You believe that? Oh.
So if you were in the middle of a hurricane, would you describe how much you love it as much as every other rain?
Hurricanes are cool, actually. Like the... No, up here, not in Florida. Yeah, like the...
Tornadoes and sunny days, both special. I love them all.
They're special in different ways.
I will not rank them in my
The Lord
favorite.
made it all.
Earthquakes. Fun. Who loves a little shake
Hey.
every now and again? Don't we need a little shaking up?
Carrie,
Optimism has its flaws.
what's up, Adrian? You don't have flaws. Eva says, absolutely, that's a great way to view it. Thank you. Love every day. You only get a certain amount of days in your life. Love all of them. Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Woo! She says, hurricanes are cool. Thank you. They are cool.
Except if you live in them and lose all your stuff.
No, I've been in
But you'd
hurricanes.
enjoy
I'm
that.
talking about up north.
I want a new
like
stuff
them.
anyway.
Pamela says, go natural. I'm great. Oh, she's gay all day. Roseanne says, it's kind of like people who say that they're not morning people. What does that even mean? That you get up and you're cranky? Janelle, your hair looks fabulous. I love you, Roseanne.
She
You're
comes
my
in
girl.
every morning.
Woo!
No, because let me show you the reality of this one. She comes in every morning, sits down in a chair in my office and goes, oh. Is that just a special way to express your joy?
No. That is true. I do that. It's because
you're a hypocrite.
It's a whole
'Cause you're
lot
a
of
hypocrite?
work to get home get here.
I thought you loved Mondays.
And then I got to be like, okay,
So you don't love
I'm
Mondays?
gonna
then?
work with Brian.
So you don't love mornings? Or
I
Mondays?
do love mornings, actually. I was actually...
Except for when you're off the radio and
You're
you
starting
don't.
a lot of topics. I could talk about mornings all day long. I grew up thinking I wasn't a morning person, and then I learned that anybody could be a morning person. And before I started working here, I started waking up at 5:30, 2 hours before the kids. My favorite time of the day, and then I started working, and it kind of switched up on me.
And then she shows up here in size like she's miserable. So,
Whatever, no.
however you want to view it when the
Kate
camera's on.
is asking about my haircut, and Eva, you're asking about my new product. I'll post the new product. It's actually super cheap. Amazon has it. I subscribed, and they send it every month. It's amazing. And so go to Janelle Neville's and like me there, and I'm going to share it later today.
My name
Because
is
Brian wants to talk about something
This
else.
is Janelle, and I'm chopped liver. It's nice to see you.
You negative. People don't want to talk to negative people. Thank you. We should look, when quarantine's over, we should have a barbecue, and you can have your hashtag Brian people on one side, and I'll have my...
There'll be a lot of food on our side.
and we'll be laughing
And all the liars get together with her. Liars and hypocrites.
Whatever. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So today, since we're
Hi,
all here
Mary.
now.
Mary just liked Brian and Janelle. Say
Oh,
hi.
fun. Hi, Mary.
Okay, go.
Good to see you. It was my realism that she was
Woo!
impressed by.
Lynn says TGIM. Woo! It's my
What?
girl.
All the people that agree with me don't have to post anything. We're all just shaking our heads in
my
disbelief
gosh.
at how your lives are so riddled with hypocrisy.
Whatever. Theola, I love you. Theola's here.
She likes me better than you.
I love Theola.
So we're going to shift gears pretty dramatically here. shifting down. But I think we started this discussion earlier, and I might want to have a couple of these this week. Because I was hanging out with a local pastor. I'm not going to tell you who because it doesn't matter who. And we were just chit-chatting, the two of us privately, and he talked about how during his church service, he brought up the issue, the value of black lives, and how we need to point out racism, and it's a sin, and I'll bring it up in church. And he got the hate. I was able to, I learned about a message he received that was disturbing from someone in his church who's claiming Christ. From a member? Yeah. Aggressive, mean, and I think it must come from a place of truth, though. And I don't want to... I think so often in society what we do is we end up with this, like, screaming at each other and not listening to each other. And I have to recognize that I know there's a lot of people who, when they hear that phrase, Black Lives Matter, they get upset. People that love Jesus. And I want to understand better. I don't want to accuse. I don't want to be mad. I don't want to be mean. Because if you're my brother or sister in Christ, I love you. We know Janelle does because she loves everything and everyone.
I love
She's
all
never
the y'all.
tasted something she doesn't like. She's never seen something she doesn't like.
Hashtag Brian people.
She's talked all about how much she hates cottage cheese, but she loves everything else. Hashtag down with cottage cheese if you're Janelle.
Oh my God, I'm all about
it's a long hashtag. Cheese. So I really do want to genuinely have a dialogue with you about what is it about that phrase that you're like, I don't want to talk about that. Black Lives Matter. I'm hoping there's somebody in this group who would join us to talk about that, or maybe you can share what someone has communicated with you. And I'm not doing this as I hate those people. No, I love you if you act that way or think that way. And I want to understand you because it's through real dialogue that we can actually build bridges with each other and better understand each other. Because I'm hoping for unity in the body of Christ on this one.
So first, I'll start with this one because he needs this. He likes attention. Isaac says, Brian, you look awesome and your beard is amazing.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you very much. I have new product you sent me for sampling. I don't have it in today, but it's nice that someone out there noticed me and didn't just shower Janelle with praise all the time.
Beatrice is here. I love your name. It's my grandmother's name. And Reina.
Beatriz.
Reina's name, my 8-year-old, her middle name's Beatriz. It's amazing. Love the name, Beatriz. Or Beatrice. Hold on. Candace
brings up
has
a really,
reason.
really good point.
Yes. She says, read their mission. They want to defund the police. Please look into this.
Now, here's the thing I'll say, Candace, that there is a political, ideological movement. Like, there's a thing called Black Lives Matter. Like, it's a group that has a platform. Okay, and I have seen their platform. It's been a couple of years since I looked at it, and there were definitely things I didn't agree with in their official platform because it extends far beyond issues of race. I personally, Candace, think that most people disaggregate the two. Most people, when they use the phrase Black Lives Matter, are not using it in a I support the political cause of Black Lives Matter as a group. What they're saying is, in principle, I'm supporting the concept of making sure black lives are valued. I think it's the concept people speak to and rarely the political movement. I could be wrong on this. And maybe you can help me. I don't know if you realize there's that a lot of people disaggregate it. Some people don't even know that there's a platform for the group Black Lives Matter. That's my best explanation is if I were to use that phrase, which I have, when I say it, I'm taking the political and ideological thing, and it's like over there somewhere. I don't care about that. What I care about is the principle or the concept that black lives inherently have value, and when they're devalued, I want to be sure I point out that I have value for them. So when I say it, I don't mean a political group. I don't know if that helps or not.
I just shared on my story on Instagram and on Facebook, matter is the minimum. Black lives are loved, black lives are cherished, and black lives are essential. And I think, like you said, there are a lot of people, especially now. I like this because it took it out of the movement. It's the idea.
Because there is a political group.
There is a political group. But the idea and the phrase, it matters. And there's context there.
So do you, when you use the phrase Black Lives Matter, are you making a public declaration of your allegiance to the political movement? Or are
No.
you talking about philosophically the idea?
I do it philosophically. Recently on my Facebook page, I shared a picture of my boys, and I didn't on purpose pick this one, but when they're doing the Wakanda Forever, I love that. But I was talking about, like, man, George Floyd was calling for his mom. And then I said, my boys matter. It's the idea of, to me, to see lives, George Floyd is just one, but to see lives like that treated like they're almost disposable. I'm tired of the hashtags. I'm tired of, oh, remember Brianna. That's dreams gone. That's a story gone. That's a person gone. So I think she mattered. It's kind of bringing back of, she's more than a hashtag. We're not disposable. Can our society agree that, like, this person's lives, our lives matter enough and should matter equally? They're not disposable. That's the feeling I see behind it.
But see, I think Carrie is asking perhaps one of the more important questions when it comes to the phrase Black Lives Matter. She's saying, how do we separate the saying Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement that support lots of organizations that I wouldn't support?
Yeah.
That is the question of the day.
How do you do it then? Maybe change the color of the meme? Do you think it looks like a brand?
I don't know. I would say I don't know that there's a perfect way to disaggregate it. What I would say is that we can do what English teachers told us and use context clues.
Okay.
Like if you have a word you don't mean, this is what our kids learn, right? If there's a word you don't know in a sentence, you can probably use the rest of the sentence to determine the word's meaning.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking to, for example, Janelle, who is outspoken about a number of issues that the Black Lives Matter movement would totally disagree with,
Yeah.
I would only have to presume, based on what I know of Janelle, that she means the philosophy, not the political movement.
Right.
And I guess
that's interesting.
maybe another way to do it is to ask.
Ask the person?
Yeah, because what we're doing is we're presuming something. Like when someone, on both sides, when someone uses the phrase Black Lives Matter, they're presuming everyone knows you mean the philosophy.
Yeah.
And when someone else gets mad about the phrase Black Lives Matter, they're presuming you mean the ideology of the political movement. Maybe we can stop assuming things about each other.
And given the benefit of the doubt in terms of what you said, saying, I know Janelle, and I assume the best of her, or I expect the best from her, like good.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good parallel here, but the, what's that hateful group of protest funerals? Westboro Baptist. They call themselves Christians. So should we all assume that whenever we say Christian, we mean Westboro Baptist? I don't think so. I think the prevailing assumption is that what you mean by Christian is follower of Jesus, not fringy people that do sinful things and are mean to people.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a benefit of the doubt scenario?
I think so. Lots of people on right now. For those who don't know, we're on YouTube. Look us up, Brian and Janelle, and subscribe so you can catch up on all of our episodes. There's the political movement, but then there's also what somebody said, I'm trying to get her here, that says it's also the idea of it looks like you're putting one above the other.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Maybe the phrase, Sheila, maybe the phrase sort of implies that only Black Lives Matter. Maybe the phrase sounds accusatory towards innocent white people.
And I think, again, it's a negative presumption. Help me on this. If somebody is saying Black Lives Matter, and what they're really saying, their meaning is Black lives have more value than all other lives, that's horrible. And it's not true. To be honest, I have yet to encounter a human person who uses the phrase philosophically, Black Lives Matter, and means matters more than everybody else.
Yeah.
I've never met a person that thinks that. And so they could exist. Just because I haven't met them doesn't mean they don't exist. But why do we presume that means the negative? Like, there's so many examples of this I could give you. And let me give you a couple as we talk about this. I said earlier on the air, what if I said, you know what really matters? I really think red delicious apples matter. Most people think they don't taste good, but I think they have value. They're equal to all other fruit. No, Brian, what are you trying to say? Oranges are horrible? No, I just said I love apples. What do you want? I like apples. No, all fruit, Brian. No, I'm talking about apples, though. Okay, that's a simple example. What about this one? From the Bible. It's a meme. It has to do with the prodigal son. The father was waiting there with a big sign, let's just say, for his son to come home. It said, hashtag, prodigal sons matter. When the older brother saw it, he was angry, wouldn't attend the party, and moped around with his own sign that said, hashtag, all sons matter. The dad looked at him and said, hey man, it's not about you right now. Now, the father clearly in the story, the moral of the story, he's saying, I love you both the same. But right now we're celebrating your son who has come home.
Yeah.
And me celebrating this son doesn't mean I don't like that one. The concept itself is biblical. It has a lot to do with false presumptions, I think.
Yeah.
What other comments do we have coming in?
Sandy says, Brian, you did it again. The comparison to Westboro Baptist completely changes my mind about the phrase Black Lives Matter. Wow, Sandy, that's your mom.
Well, thanks, Mom.
Dorothy says, this is way more than a political movement. Blacks and brown people have been treated like their lives don't matter for 400 years. Whites' lives already matter. Come on, people. It's about being blind to our privileged lives.
Yeah, and you know, Dorothy, I didn't get to that yet, but that's one of those historical realities that not everybody is totally aware of the history of it. But I think it would be a safe summary for me to say that for the vast majority of American history, Black lives didn't matter. Yeah. Or, more safely put, mattered less. Not that they, I mean, that was codified in our Constitution at its original writing. The 3/5 Compromise inherently indicates that Black lives were valued at less than white lives. Now, of course, that was changed later. Okay, fine, good. We had slavery up until the Civil War. We had Reconstruction, Jim Crow South. None of that, like, devaluing of Black lives changed until 1964 with the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
So up and from the 1600s in the colonies through 1964, Black lives objectively mattered less.
Yeah.
And so with that perspective in mind, just a few years later, in 2020, declaring that Black Lives Matter is actually a historically profound statement. Because for so long in history, they didn't matter, or mattered less. And so, I mean, do white lives matter? Well, of course they do. They shouldn't not matter. They should matter just as much, even according to our Constitution and the Scripture, as a Black life. But historically, we haven't valued Black lives. So this should be, as Dorothy indicates, a relatively obvious historical conclusion. But I think people take it personally for some reason.
Yeah. Catherine is saying, you're so right, Brian. Randall, exactly. Sandy says, I ran across an article attempting to explain the discomfort with the title Black Lives Matter. The writer's position is that, in general, white culture assigns dignity and value to each individual, and African American culture assigns dignity and value to the group. So when the whites hear Black Lives Matter, they think that what's being said is that other lives don't matter as much, whereas the Black community is attempting to say our group is as important as any other group. I'm curious to hear people's thoughts.
Yeah, that's really good, Sandy. I just don't know how to bridge that gap. Like, again, I've never encountered a Black person that loves Jesus who uses the phrase Black Lives Matter to indicate matters more than everyone else's. So I don't understand how we go from that's not what we mean to believing that's not what we mean. How do we bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Like someone saying Black Lives Matter, we go, well, yeah, all lives matter. Well, yeah, we believe you, but we want to value Black lives that have been historically undervalued. Well, yeah, but what are you saying? I mean, white lives matter too. Well, of course they do, but that's not what we're saying. Like, how long are we going to do that? How do we bridge that gap? I don't know how to bridge that gap.
Someone is asking for the meme. I'm looking for it. Marcia says, putting this into the prodigal son parable is very helpful.
Let me actually, I can hold it up. Maybe you can see it and pause it. This is, I hope that's close enough or not too close. When it finally gets to it, can you tell me?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
You see it?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, this is the meme. I thought it was really helpful. This is my chicken scratching that you can't read because I got a D+ in handwriting in 5th grade.
Okay.
I did.
Beverly says, I watched Just Mercy this weekend. All I can say is wow. And I cannot believe how recent. I also cannot believe that Chief of Police remained in office until 2019. People who haven't seen it should, and it is free this month on Prime.
Yes, Beverly. That was the one that got me the most. You watch the end, and that police chief retired after a happy career. Have you seen it yet?
No.
No.
I can't, like,
wait till you see it.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. Michael B. Jordan is fantastic. He stands out in that to me, even more than Jamie Foxx.
Ooh. Dorothy says, we aren't aware of racism. We just don't want to see it. We cannot claim ignorance on this. Kathy says, during the Boston Marathon bombings and Las Vegas shootings, many people posted and used hashtags like, we stand with Boston, we stand with Vegas. People didn't object. We weren't standing with people who, we were standing with people who were suffering.
What a great example, Kathy. Yeah, when you say, we stand with Boston, what you hate Cleveland? You laugh, because it's ridiculous, guys. Yeah. It's ridiculous. No one's implying they hate everything else because they declare they love one thing. This is where we have to talk to each other.
Do you think it's where people stand before they even see it? So they're already defensive or have preconceived. No. So when they see it, that's their initial reaction versus slowing down and saying, well, where is this coming from? Do you think it's that?
I really think it comes from the years ago when this started. It was the political movement called Black Lives Matter that set up a website. They have a platform. And there's many things on there Christians wouldn't agree with. And I think there's some people who can't disaggregate that from, like, what they're trying to indicate is, why would you even use a phrase that could associate you with a movement that's got things that are not Christian?
Okay, so I know we're talking about Black Lives Matter, but if we're going to keep it real, it's anything in that context. Talking about racism and bringing up racism upsets people. So we want to, I don't think some people are even about, oh, it's a political movement. I think, because if you say, okay, forget Black Lives Matter, there is systemic injustice. People get angry. You don't think it's just the topic?
Yeah, I think it could be an excuse to just not have to deal with something.
Because the political movement gets some people off the hook. It's not about that.
Yeah,
it's about you don't want to talk about injustice.
But I mean, I think somebody with a clear conscience could say to you, I've researched the movement and I don't agree with their platform.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I mean, couldn't they say that? So then I guess the charitable thing to do then would be to talk to a human person.
Yeah.
And with all honesty say, hey, when you say Black Lives Matter, do you mean the political movement or the philosophical concept?
Yeah.
Or when you say that, what do you mean? Or are you saying that other lives don't matter?
Yeah.
Because then that'll clear it up. If somebody thinks those negative things, that's worth talking about. But then maybe you can move on and figure out where they're coming from.
Yeah. Samantha says the conversation existed first.
Oh, yeah. Samantha, absolutely it existed first. And there's a group that hijacked it, trademarked it, did all that stuff, yeah.
Dorothy, maybe whites want to keep our privileged lives and don't want to change because they fear it will somehow take away what they have. But like all fears, there's a lie behind it.
Yeah, maybe. I just want to be charitable, you know? I don't want to... This could easily degenerate into a, look at all these idiots getting mad. No, I think that people in their own minds may have some logical reasons for this, or at least may have some explanations that they feel comfortable with. I think it's a good time to re-examine what's going on here. Because I'm telling you, at least when I use the phrase, I don't mean that other lives don't matter, and I don't mean the political movement. What I mean is that Black lives have been undervalued and intentionally devalued for centuries. And we still have issues today to grapple with to make sure they're held in equal value.
Yeah.
So because of that, I'm going to declare the value of a Black life because it's been so undervalued over time. That's what I mean when I say it, and I think that's what you mean.
Yes. The other thing is, I want to know before we go, when you're going to ask, if you have a white person in your life that's sharing this, go to them first. Because I'm in this job and I'm willing to, but even we're tired of explaining this and it triggers emotions. So if you're really have good intentions and have a white person instead you can go to them, I think. And I know that may sound bad, but it's putting us in a position that I don't think most people that are listening now want to put people in. Do you agree or?
Yeah.
Because even that question can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. Really, I got to explain to you. So I think a white person that's sharing it, if you have something, they may be in a better position to explain it objectively and
somebody earlier brought up a really interesting point that was to the contrary but I've never devalued a black life. It's up there quite a bit further, I think. Don't go too fast or we can't see it.
Can you share the meme? Watch Just
Go further. Further.
Wow, I love the comparison to Prodigal Son.
We're looking just a moment.
This is way more political movement. From my brother speaking with my white friends in here. I have a question. I wouldn't be better to. Wouldn't it be better?
No, that wasn't it.
I think the political.
There, Daniel, right there. The only problem I have with it is I never thought they didn't. And I believe you. So Daniel a while back said the only problem I have with the phrase Black Lives Matter is that I never thought they didn't matter. What's curious to me, Daniel, and this is probably not you, but I've heard people say that, and therefore they get mad at the phrase. So if you've always valued black lives and someone declares they matter, why would you be upset? To me, the equation would be, I've always thought they matter, this person says they matter, equals, yay, we agree. Right?
No, but I think they're saying why people feel like it's accusatory. Right? Which is...
I've never understood that. No one is saying, when someone declares Black Lives Matter, they're not looking at me saying, because you, sir, Mr. Brian Dolan, do not value black lives. No, I don't feel it's personal. If I agree with the phrase, why wouldn't I go, yeah, that's true? Rather than assume that someone means it towards me as a negative.
Kimberly says, thank you for making it plain for folks. We all need to step back. We think we are hearing, which often gets interrupted by our own thoughts.
Yeah.
But start listening to each other. To listen is to be silent and really hear what the other is saying before rebutting. Listen and silent have the same letters. Ooh, interesting. Dorothy, good. If we're all on the same page with black and brown lives mattering, then we're ready to stop being silent about racial injustice in our country. Sarah, Pavel, I've never seen that name.
Hey, Pavel.
Hey, welcome. Pavel says, how about the millions of Jewish lives that have been devalued, or Native American lives?
You know what? That's a really great point, Pavel. Is it Pavel? I think it's Pavel.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm probably saying it wrong both times.
And me, myself.
So, I think that you are certainly right. Here's my comparison for you. If somebody goes to you and says, hey, I just found out my wife has cancer, which she doesn't, by the way, in case this comes out weird. I just found out my wife has cancer. So somebody's not in response going to go, oh yeah? A lot of people have cancer. Why don't we talk about the other guy's wife? Why are we talking about your wife right now? It's certainly true that anti-Semitism is horrible and Jewish lives are devalued. What happens to Native American people and has happened to them is egregious. But what we can't do is dismiss all of them because we're talking about one of them. I think there's a moment historically to talk about Native American lives,
yes,
and we should. And I think there's a moment historically to talk about Jewish lives, and we have and we will. There was a synagogue that was vandalized here in Northeast Ohio about a year ago. We talked about that at length.
Yeah.
And there's a moment to talk about black lives. Now, when we spend a moment to talk about black lives, it doesn't mean because we think these other problems aren't big. It's just that we're talking about these now. And it feels devaluing of a black life to try to distract and talk about other people's issues. I'm feeling very depressed today, Brian. Well, me too. So, and so is she. That's not how we treat each other, I don't think.
Ooh, Giselle commented for the first time.
Your sister?
Very good point, Brian. Woo, she's probably jumping.
I've always been her favorite.
That's my sister. Hello, Giselle. Correct him. Sermont. And I haven't seen that name either. Amen. Thank you, Brian. Samantha says, mourn with those who mourn.
Yeah. It's just, we just can't assume, it's big coming from me, we can't assume the negative.
Right.
We can't.
Randall, I love your name because Randall's my favorite and This Is Us, so I just thought I'd let you know that. And that, well, actually, yeah, we'll talk about Randall later. Randall says, and that goes for Black people as well. I feel we have a lack of understanding the importance of unity because we haven't personally been through what our ancestors have endured. We live on the benefits of the labor of our ancestors, and honestly, I can't even begin to imagine the agony they went through so we can have the freedom we have today.
Yeah, and I really do think that we have to be charitable and understand that there are disagreeable things about the Black Lives Matter political movement.
Yeah, there are.
I think we have to understand that some people object to that and are having trouble disaggregating the political movement from the philosophical concept. Yeah. And we can just help them. Why get mad?
Yeah.
Help them.
Pavel says, as I listen to what's going on, many Black people are coming out against this movement because in a way it does single out the Black community in a negative light because of what this movement stands for and what they have done.
I've seen that, although I wouldn't say many Black people.
Yeah.
I would say I've seen some Black people say that. There's one prominent conservative female speaker who tends to go that direction. But we have to assume that just because one Black person says it doesn't mean it's the prevailing concept or that they're right. I get what you're saying, but then that same concept would also have to be true about whenever someone brings up anti-Semitism. We would have to say, stop talking about anti-Semitism. You're just pointing out the negative about Jewish people. And no one does that.
Yeah.
Because that would be rude and inappropriate.
Yeah.
I just find it curious that the only time it's considered inappropriate is when we talk about African Americans. No one's going to say that to victims of sex trafficking. You know what I mean? Or Jewish people or whatever the situation might be.
Nina says, the fact that we have to explain this shows how much we're not valued. No one argues when we discuss the need to value Jewish lives after something happens in their community.
Yeah, but I appreciate what Pavel is saying, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because we can't have these discussions if we can't hear from wise people like you, Pavel, who have legitimate questions and legitimate points to make.
Yeah, and that's the point of this conversation. In our society, we need this more. And even if we can't fix society, but in your circles, being open to talk to people that disagree with you and not getting angry and all that, and trying to really understand. Denise says, right, Brian, man, you're getting a lot of those. Mike says there definitely is a large bigotry against Blacks, but typically it's a small part of the population, but gets the largest publicity. It's sad.
Mike, I think you're right on that in terms of the large egregious things. The problem comes into the things that were codified into law for hundreds of years, suddenly were made illegal, but it didn't change hearts and attitudes. It's like the day after the Voting Rights Act passed in 1964, the entirety of America didn't just suddenly go, man, never mind, we were all wrong about this black thing, they're great, they're equal, kumbaya. Mm-hmm. I think what happened is we had all these systems set up for so long that just making things illegal didn't change hearts, it didn't change philosophies, and that is what we're talking about today.
Kathy says, Black lives matter is only if they are killed by white people. So many black people killed by other black people, and there's no movement, and nothing is even said. Why don't all Black lives matter?
Kathy, that's a really good point. Actually, I belong to a black church on the south side of Chicago, and there actually is a large movement of people fighting against black on black crime. And when you go to most black communities, there's organizations like that. The one that was that was very prominent in south side of Chicago was called Black on Black Love, and they brought up that very issue. So I would say actually it's a very important thing to many black people. But I think historically, maybe you would agree, maybe you wouldn't. It seems to me historically that crimes against black people because of their ethnicity has been worse than other ethnic groups throughout all of American history. Not that others haven't had issues. There's the Irish, Chinese, there's other issues, but I mean, the African American experience is truly unique in America. And just because there's black on black crime doesn't mean that there isn't an issue in a system set up, the cards stacked against black people in other areas. And I think when you look at statistics regarding sentencing, comparative between white and black people committing the same crimes, and prison populations, you're going to start to see that there really is some sort of systemic issue going on here. That's my best answer to that.
You want to go to Cindy or you want to go?
I don't care.
Cindy says, why does the phrase all lives matter make so many angry? Jesus died on the cross for all lives. All. If we people continue on always looking for victimization causes in this earthly life, we can surely find them everywhere, and in turn always causing a divide. The solution starts with each person's heart and home. The change begins there with accountability.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. Don't you? Cindy said some very true things.
Like what?
The solution starts with each person in their heart and their home.
Yeah.
I think race issues we should start with ourselves.
Yeah.
Self-examination.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
That Jesus died on the cross for everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. You're right, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
The phrase in and of itself, all lives matter, is absolutely true and unoffensive.
Yeah.
I think the problem, Cindy, with why people get mad about the phrase all lives matter is it's used as a response to the phrase Black Lives Matter. It's reactionary, it's not proactive, and it's not said in a vacuum. It's usually someone saying, hey, you know what? Black lives have value. They've been devalued. Black lives matter. All lives matter. And what that feels like is a devaluing of black lives, or a failure to recognize how black lives have been devalued. So I think in a vacuum, your idea is correct. But in society, maybe you don't agree with me, but I would think that's been used more as a weapon and a response than a proactive kind thing.
I love Eva's comments on black violence. She says black on black violence is actually punished by the law, while when it happens at the hands of police, they're usually dismissed. Which again, I think brings up the heart of Black Lives Matter and the feeling that they're treated as, that's what it comes across as, treated as disposable, and that it doesn't matter. If unarmed man is killed, like to see George Floyd going through that and to think, oh, well, hashtag move on. I think that's where the heart of, he mattered. Because he matters to the Lord. He's made in the image of God. Tisha, but nonetheless, all lives matter is true. Samantha says every ethnic community kills more of its own than others because most crimes are crimes of proximity and passion. White people tend to kill white people. Hispanics tend to kill Hispanics. Yeah, very complicated. I think the goal of the conversation is just that, talking to people who disagree and teaching that we got to listen to each other. And I liked how you highlighted there's truth on both sides. Yeah,
and what we can't do is just get mad and not talk to each other. I think we need to acknowledge when someone else makes a good point.
Yep.
Because theologically, Cindy was right. All lives are equal at the foot of the cross.
Absolutely.
There's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female. All are one in Christ.
Yes.
It's absolutely true. I think we just have to look at some context to see why it becomes a sticking point.
Right.
And I really think for Christians, the concept that historically black lives have been undervalued, which is true, and devalued, which is true, that therefore us proclaiming as a positive connotation of equality under the law and equal justice under the law and equality at the cross, proclaiming that black lives value is a positive thing. Black lives matter.
It is a positive thing.
It's intended to be not divisive, but positive.
And I think the Cindy thing, because I've seen it another thing about the victimization. I talk to my kids a lot about the injustices out there, but I'm not raising them to be victims in any other way than when I talk to them all the time. I just had a conversation with Raina. I do this all the time about the dangers of molestation. I'm not raising her to think, oh, as a little kid, I'm weak and people can, I'm empowering her with knowledge to know there's stuff out there that can happen to you because you're a child, and, you know, people in power can victimize you. Or when girls are teenagers and we talk about their, they could be exposed to danger in the streets by, you know, criminals that are out there in terms of sex crimes. So I don't know, that idea of you're victimizing yourself by looking at the injustice or mentioning it, That's what I struggle with.
Well, yeah, because we don't do it with anything else.
Yeah.
That's where I, like, for example, if somebody brings up sex trafficking, human trafficking really bothers them. They think it's a major problem. Does anyone look at them and say, well, yeah, but what about armed robbery? Well, you don't care about armed robbery? Or you don't care about rape? You don't care about, I mean, no one does that because it's considered socially acceptable to, even though other negative things exist, they're also crimes, to highlight one crime that needs attention. This really is the same thing, and I don't understand why. No, I do understand, but it makes me sad that for whatever reason, highlighting the African American experience makes people suddenly want to talk about other negatives that happen.
Yeah.
What about Jewish people? What about Native American people? What about this? What about that? What are you saying about me? No, we're actually saying other things exist. This is not, we're not saying this is the only thing or the most important thing. We're saying right now, this is an issue for which we need to declare as a thing.
Yeah. We love y'all. Like us, share us. It helps the ministry. And go to YouTube, and we got 200 plus episodes you can catch up on.